Hey everyone, and welcome back to Planet Coaster. We'll be working on a ride skin for this wonderful flat ride initially off the monorail station. And we're doing this to, one, establish a reason for guests to start coming over here, because just having drink shops and food stalls is quite not enough for of a lure to bring them from the initial area to this section. So once you add a ride, it'll actually start encouraging your guests to show up and start being entertained in the new area. And since this is going to be the main bulk of the park, what you're going to want to do is try and add enough rides here to kind of offset the population increase and bring more people to this new area. And hopefully that'll keep the beginning area from overcrowding. Now that's going to be a couple rides in, and it's going to take a little bit of time before we're at that point. But here initially, this initial kind of build of a cargo depot or cargo storage that we are going to then springboard off into the actual landing pad that the Type 7 will be sitting on. We need to get this done so that we can fill in a whole bunch of dead space that's kind of around the beginning area. Initially, trying to decide how to go about just getting this staircase built up to the second level here. I wanted to use the pre-built kind of industrial staircases because this needs to be more of an industrial area. And to do that, went ahead and made a custom little grate there because this is not quite centered on a grid. There is a scenery object that is very reminiscent of the great roofing tile, but I think something custom worked out just fine. And plus, I still need to become more comfortable with the current building mechanics in the game. Over here, we're going to be making our own kind of custom little cargo container. This is just to move bulk items around using a crane system that I set up here earlier. And what you're going to be seeing is a lot of little pieces here to give this a shape. And I like the heavier base with these curved initial walls that kind of increase the width, and then it comes more into a point on top with a little bit of a flat area so that you're able to stack these in more of a crisscrossing pattern. And at that point, you're able to store these kind of more in bulk. We're going to add the base cargo kind of trolley, I guess, as the floor in these. You could technically, make different cargo variants, different cargo amounts in here, and even maybe this is the uncovered variation to where they're loading it in, and so afterwards they actually maybe stretch some sort of material over it to make it a more solid structure. And that's more of a skeletal look at the interior as it's not fully ready to be shipped out. We'll add some piping and just some little extra detail, little lights, some green lighting, some red lighting, so you can see which side you're looking at. And I think that's a fun little detail to have in there. The piping to me might be more of a pressurized kind of thing to do with the cargo. And you can see we're just going to stack them up to the left, and the left will become a little bit of a storage shed barn-like structure that we'll be using later. Here we are going to go ahead and construct some larger struts, and these are more of a interior detail for the larger elements that we have here in red. And I like having these multiple layers of support columns, this wider colorful exterior and then this darker interior that looks like it's holding most of the weight, and the red bit is more just for some additional supports as this thing just gains weight. And this crane system here will need a little topper for that here shortly. But initially what we're going to do here is work on the first outbuilding, and this outbuilding here is going to be accepting cargo from the ship. We'll add a little bit of a door, but this overhang with the strut supports kind of going through, I think looked pretty cool. And as we go forward, making this industrial tends to look like this. So you're going to have these exposed metal struts, you're going to have a wider base, some support columns. This is a ramp there that's going to accept cargo through that larger window. Some ventilation on the side, using some scenery items to, of course, increase the bulk of the building relatively quickly. And it's a technique that I've been using throughout the sci-fi build. It is something that is just a time saver. You could technically build all these shapes by hand if you want to, but if they're in the game, I don't suggest doing that. It is a major time sink, though I am sure you can get a greater variety in your building shapes if you did do that method. But you know, you run the risk of not being able to upload these items into the workshop the more detail you throw in there. Splitting that window up, and I do want to try and move forward from the Sidewinder bar and grill and showing a little bit more of the interior of these buildings. You know, show the inner workings, show that there is stuff going on inside of these, just to help portray a little bit more of a story. Here is a little bit of a copy of the rails that the little arm is going to be riding along to move these larger cargo containers around into their storage location. And we're just using that as a base to build this lower cart area thing. Now, initially, I thought maybe having these grapple arms looked cool, but they weren't symmetrical or anything like that. And going forward, I just figured to have some wires, some connecting ports, made a little bit more sense. Maybe it's a little bit more vacuum fit on there, so that it is using just a simple method, maybe electromagnetic. That could be a possibility. This roof, I wanted to do something a little bit different, a little bit more inline, smooth, curved here. Ended up changing it in the long run just to allow for overhangs on this upper balcony, because having a balcony without additional roofing elements tend to make the building look a little floaty and not quite balanced with the new additional girth on the sides of the structure. So balancing that out with some roofing, awning, overhang areas, I think is a good idea to do in the long run. And increasing the little light details. We're going to be coloring the lighting in this building very similar to the Sidewinder bar and grill, using the orange smaller lights and the light blue for the larger lights. And that's going to keep it, I think, relatively a good color palette just for a high-tech industrial area that we are in now. You know, this is the main cargo storage unit for this outpost, and you figure that, you know, it's going to be important to have some good lighting here. Orange for warning, blue for maybe office space interiors. And it just starts really lining up with the rest of the structure. Some more piping. Piping is great just for a little detail that you can run along windowsills. You can run along the sides of the building just to add a little bit of depth. Even some warning panels there just to bring that out possibly as a construction zone and to make it look a little bit more unique than the rest of the building. And so adding these little elements can kind of push your builds into their own and to help separate some of the structures from previous ones that you have built. The hardest thing about doing one large park in one continual theme is simply you're going to run into these elements of repetition, getting into a comfortable zone, and that is something you want to try and avoid as much as possible. In fact, it kind of makes me want to work on some smaller items so that I can avoid that and increase just my visual library so that we have something more to draw from than just what we've built so far. And if you kind of keep using the same ideas, you're going to run into this repetition that just doesn't look well in the long term. Here is just a little cart, possible pathing element that overshoots this road. I did want to get some animatronics in here, some moving parts to coincide with the ride itself. And so this is some sort of cargo scanning element that the guests will be leaving the flat ride and possibly getting scanned to be accepted back into the port itself. Maybe this is to prevent contraband or anything, some type of story element that you can kind of just make up on your own to basically have it make sense in the long term. This little pod mover here is, in my mind, what's going to actually be going across that little hazard zone. In that way, it's a tracked vehicle, and you don't want to damage the piping and tubing underneath over the pathway there. You can see the ramp into the structure a bit ago, and that was basically the jumping off point that we're going to need to pull into the actual landing pad that's going to be loading up the Type 7 or unloading, depending on how you interpret the cargo space. And now we're just going to add in some lights, change the lights on and colors of things, make the orange and blue kind of pop out, and move into the storage shed. Now the storage shed, I'm not quite sure how to tie in the back side of the building quite yet, and that's probably something I'm going to be doing off camera, but it's going to be just a simple barn shape. We're going to be moving from there, a little bit of a power generator, because I don't really use that piece too often yet, and so it felt like a good time to use more of a rounded element attached to the back side. We'll have some catwalks along an upper floor. Maybe people are inspecting the cargo from there and walking around, and just overall to increase the believability, if I can speak today, of the structure itself. Some more vertical supports, because it's a big open area. You're going to need a lot of struts and supporting structures on there. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and cut to placing the back facade, and we'll go ahead and hang out in real time so you can see some more of the finer details of the overall build process and how everything turned out as one. So here we are at the new cargo kind of storage area of our park, and it is backdropped by more of our normal kind of city skyline that we've been building and using previously. And this is just to keep it consistent, and also, of course, to hide that we're in a pretty much an African plain area, and keep that behind. And so you're on the ride, you actually have stuff to look at from all sides. And overall, I think the build turned out well. It is currently 3,272 total parts, so there's a lot of little detail in there and a lot of little elements to look at. You can see the large support structure for the cranes going across to move the cargo from the left to the right, and then north-south. And also you have your little tread vehicle here to move the smaller things possibly. And this crane system is mainly to support this large cargo area, as it looks like there's a block here that's fighting the colorized elements there. Okay, there we go. Sometimes coloring objects the same color will help the Z fighting in the long run. So a little bit of an orange with a black backdrop back there, kind of the Elite Dangerous colors, which is always nice to bring into the structures so far. Gonna have to color these panels and things. We'll probably keep it an industrial look, some yellows, some oranges and reds. Not quite as like 50s diner as the Sidewinder Bar and Grill, but we'll probably make it more match the previous area, something a little bit more, as I said, industrial, I guess. The queue line, of course, is just going through a little bit of a cargo yard with some exposed items and crates waiting to be sorted and stored. The front entrance area, plenty of little lights, some tubing being exposed, and there's a lot of detailing that we need to do in terms of like curbside detailing along the structure to really tie it into the park and make it interact with the path itself. That is a second path or pass, I guess I should say, of detailing that we're just not there quite yet. I want to establish kind of the larger scenery pieces first, and then we'll go back in and kind of fill in these dead spots. Next episode, I want to try and get the hyperspin detailed out, because I don't want to build out too far. I kind of want to slowly build out from the station left to the right and fill it in full of detail so that we're able to rift off of the other buildings. I know last episode you guys are suggesting to build a possible bridge connecting to the bar and grill, which we can do that. That's what this square spot is for. I kind of want to make a building kind of connecting across, and we can bring the path over and then down, and that way we can get some movement across and make sky bridges through this area, and that'll make it look even more industrial, more high-tech in the long term. Here's some of the little pieces that we made to go around, you know, the large strutting structures, the cargo containers, and the little, I guess, mag lift type of crane element. This is the kind of cargo accepting area, and also, I guess, unloading zone to go towards our ship eventually once we build its landing pad and landing gear. And I do like to have interiors that you can kind of see into, and you know, it also gives the guests something to look at as well. That's something more their eye level, you know, bringing in some color and elements like that as they go up onto the ride and enjoy that and leave. We got, you know, our nice cargo scanner here to scan the guests as they leave and potentially dismount as cargo themselves. And the ride is the overpower ride. It's just a simple swinging motion. I didn't want anything too tall because I can't really make the backdrop any taller, and the taller rides might be more towards this back section. That way we can have something, you know, the Type 7 can kind of block the view and give them plenty to look at as you move into the rest of the park. So let's go ahead and take a look at everything at night here. So let's do 12 a.m. Kind of dim the lights for you guys. And you can see we have some overhead kind of street lights providing a nice ambience to the area and to make it look a little bit more well lit. We can always add more as we go through, but keeping the lighting light will help us hopefully. Hold on, I need to fix something. My OCD is getting the best of me. And there we go, perfect. 10 out of 10. So yeah, the lighting will hopefully improve as we go through. I can also change the skyline lighting to probably the more blue color that we have more in the high-tech area that we are in. And we also probably need to update the monorail station lighting as well to bring that and tie this whole area together and make it a little bit different than the previous zone. So that's something we're gonna have to work on over time. So let's go ahead and hit play and speed up time just so you can see, you know, everything moving. A little scanner thing, the guests, plenty of guests in the area. In fact, I had to take your suggestion and limit the guest count so that there's not going to be an abundance of people. Let's pull away. And that's just going to rotate around. The seating itself will spin in place. And luckily, all these seats are facing forward and will hopefully provide them with a good view of just the general presence of this area as soon as we start getting this all built up. And it'll hopefully look really nice. Monorails are working and providing a good way for our guests to reach this new area. In fact, if we go back to the old area, you can see that we have a little bit of an overcrowding issue. It is less than it was before I built the ride. So as we keep expanding that direction, I feel like that's going to sort itself out. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed today's episode, feel free to subscribe to my channel for more creative goodness such as this. Go ahead and leave a like. So I know you guys want to see some more Planet Coaster. Leave a comment down below if there's anything you want to add, change, or suggest for the next episode. So until then, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.